Imagine this. You're the most famous entertainer on the planet. You've sold tens of millions of albums. You've moonwalked across the biggest stages in the world. Presidents ask to meet you. Children copy your every move. Your name is so powerful that a single appearance can change the fate of an entire TV network, a brand, even a country's image. And then, a phone rings. Not in your house, not in your office. Somewhere else. An office phone, a police line, a social worker's desk, a lawyer's private number. One voice speaks. A few details are given, and suddenly your life is divided into before the call and after the call. This is the story many fans believe about Michael Jackson, a man who floated above ordinary fame, brought back down to earth by something he never even heard with his own ears. A single phone call that set off a chain reaction of allegations, investigations, headlines, and courtroom drama that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In the early 1990s, Michael wasn't just a singer. He was an institution. Thriller had reset the rules of pop. Bad had proven it wasn't a fluke. Dangerous had arrived with groundbreaking videos. Black or White, remember the time? In the closet. He was touring stadiums, breaking attendance records, and still chasing perfection like a hungry newcomer. From the outside, his world looked untouchable. But inside that world, pressure was building, financial demands, creative expectations, childhood scars he never fully escaped. He surrounded himself with children, saying he saw in them the innocence he never had. To some, it was strange. To others, it was beautiful. To tabloids, it was an opportunity waiting to explode. And then, in 1993, that opportunity arrived, in the form of a phone call. Someone somewhere dialed a number and described a story that would become front-page news across the globe. Accusations that the king of pop had crossed a line no star, no matter how big, can cross without paying a devastating price. What really happened around that call? Who made it? Who received it? And why did it hit Michael's world like a nuclear blast? In this documentary, we're going to slow everything down. We'll go back to the final calm days before the storm. Walk step by step through the explosion of the first allegations, and trace how one call, one decision, one moment of accusation reshaped the career, the image, and the legacy of Michael Jackson. Stay with us, because to understand how a phone call broke Michael Jackson's career, we first have to understand just how high he was standing when the world decided to pull him down. To understand the impact of that phone call, we have to start in a very different place, at the height of Michael Jackson's power. The year is 1992. Michael is on the Dangerous World Tour. Stadiums are sold out, from Tokyo to Bucharest, from London to Mexico City. Crowds scream his name before he even appears. Helicopters circle above arenas. TV networks fight for rights to broadcast his shows. For millions, Michael isn't just a singer. He is a global event. He had worked for this all his life. From the days of the Jackson 5 in Gary, Indiana, through grueling Motown schedules and a childhood lived under stage lights instead of street lights, Michael had sacrificed almost everything to become the greatest entertainer of his generation. Rehearsals, perfection, constant reinvention. This was his normal. Thriller had become the best-selling album of all time. Bad had produced an unprecedented string of #1 singles. Dangerous showed he could adapt to the new sound of the 90s, working with cutting-edge producers and creating music that felt both futuristic and deeply emotional. But behind the scenes, life was more complicated. Michael was a paradox. A man beloved by millions, yet deeply lonely. He built Neverland, a dreamlike estate with a private amusement park and zoo, as both an escape and a statement. Here, he said, he could finally have the childhood he missed. Here, he could invite children, sick children, disadvantaged children, friends, children, to ride rides, see animals, watch movies, and forget their pain. To his supporters, this was genuine kindness. They saw a man who identified with the powerless, with the young, with those who had been hurt. To his critics, something about it felt off. A grown man surrounding himself with kids, sleepovers, private time. It raised eyebrows, even before any accusations surfaced. Still, in 1992, the mainstream narrative hadn't turned on him yet. The jokes were about his changing appearance, his rumored plastic surgeries, his eccentric habits. But beneath the teasing, admiration still dominated. Michael was still the king of pop, still a guaranteed ratings boost, still a symbol of crossover success in a racially divided industry. He also carried scars that the public couldn't see. Memories of a strict father, the strain of always being on, the pressure to top himself, album after album, rumors of insomnia, dependency on pain medication after severe burns from a Pepsi commercial shoot in 1984. People around him saw a man trying to hold together a world that constantly demanded more. More music, more tours, more magic. In this fragile balance between genius and exhaustion, innocence and suspicion, a single spark could ignite an inferno. And that spark, according to many accounts, arrived in the summer of 1993. Somewhere, a phone is picked up. A conversation begins, possibly with a dentist, a parent, a therapist, an official. Details are shared about Michael's relationship with a young boy. Concern is voiced, lines are crossed from worry to accusation, from private discomfort to official report. This call doesn't reach Michael. It doesn't need to. It reaches a system, law enforcement, social services, lawyers hungry for high-profile cases, media outlets constantly on the hunt for the next scandal. By the time the details of that call start leaking, the story is no longer famous artist helps children. It becomes, in the world's imagination, something darker. Did Michael Jackson abuse a child? In a matter of days, a lifetime carefully built in front of cameras is put on trial in the court of public opinion. The dangerous tour, the humanitarian image, the quiet acts of charity. They don't vanish, but they are suddenly overshadowed, because in our culture, one type of accusation can erase death. In 1993, allegations surface that Michael Jackson has abused a minor. Police open an investigation. Search warrants are obtained. Neverland, once a symbol of wonder, is now treated as a potential crime scene. Officers comb through bedrooms, storage areas, private spaces. They're looking for evidence, anything that might confirm or contradict what was said on that phone. For the first time, Michael's private sanctuary is being narrated by strangers. The media seizes the story with both hands. Tabloids print sensational headlines. Some newspapers and TV shows go further, publishing unverified rumors, anonymous sources, speculation dressed as fact. Late-night comedians turn the allegations into punchlines. In the space of a few weeks, the world's favorite entertainer becomes the world's biggest target. Yet, at this point, prosecutors still have not filed any charges. Michael maintains his innocence from the beginning. Through statements, his representatives call the allegations a shakedown, an attempt at extortion. They say he is being targeted because of his wealth and vulnerability. Supporters point out inconsistencies in the emerging stories. Critics argue that his relationships with children were always suspicious, and that these allegations simply confirm their worst fears. Caught in the middle is a human being who has spent his whole life in front of cameras, and now wishes he could disappear. During this period, Michael is on tour. Under immense stress, he announces he is addicted to painkillers and enters rehab. Publicly, he appears fragile, tearful, exhausted. Some see a broken man under siege. Others, more cynical, suspect a strategic move to gain sympathy. Behind closed doors, a crucial decision is made on the civil side. Rather than fight a long lawsuit in open court, the parties reach a financial settlement. According to multiple reports, tens of millions of dollars change hands. Officially, the settlement comes with no admission of guilt, and legally prosecutors keep charges possible. But in the court of public opinion, nuance dies quickly. The logic is brutal. If you're innocent, why pay? That question echoes across talk shows, dinner tables, and fan communities. Michael S. defenders counter with another question. How can you fight the full power of the state, the media, and a determined accuser? and still stay sane, still work, still live. The truth, as always, is trapped somewhere between headlines and lawyers' statements. What we know for certain is this: the phone call that started the investigation led to a chain of events that permanently altered the way the world saw Michael Jackson. Even though criminal charges were not brought in the association between his name and the word abuse was now cemented in the global consciousness. Every future story about him would mention it. Every new friendship with a child would be viewed through that lens. The media storm also set a template for how allegations against celebrities would be covered in the decades to come. Leaks, speculation, dramatic reenactments, and a rush to be first rather than accurate. Michael Jackson's case became the prototype for the modern scandal. For Michael himself, the impact was devastating. Friends later described him as more isolated, more suspicious, more fearful of betrayal. Once a man who seemed to thrive in the presence of fans, he began to move deeper into seclusion, surrounding himself with a smaller circle, building higher emotional walls. The phone call had done more than trigger an investigation. It had cracked the image of invincibility that protected him for over a decade. From this point on, Michael Jackson would never again be just a singer, just a performer, just the king of pop. He would be, in the eyes of millions, a question mark. A man forever caught between adoration and suspicion, innocence and accusation, genius and controversy, all traced back, in the minds of many, to that first call that turned whispers into a global storm. In the years after the 1993 allegations, Michael tried to rebuild. He returned to the studio. He released History in 1995, part greatest hits, part deeply personal new material. The album cover showed a towering statue of Michael, as if he were fighting to reclaim his myth. Songs like Scream, They Don't Care About Us, and Childhood revealed a man lashing out at the media, at injustice, at the way his life had been dissected for profit. But the world had changed. For some fans, nothing had shifted. Michael was innocent, a victim of greed and jealousy, a target precisely because he was different. For others, doubt lingered. The settlement, the oddness of his lifestyle, the relentless rumors. It all piled up into a cloud that never fully went away. Then, in 2003, came a second devastating blow. A new documentary, featuring Michael and a British journalist, showed him holding hands with a young boy and defending his habit of sharing beds with children as innocent and loving. To some viewers, it was merely strange. To others, it confirmed their darkest suspicions. Once again, a conversation, a kind of phone call in the form of broadcast television, triggered an official investigation. This time, it did lead to criminal charges. In 2005, Michael Jackson stood trial, facing multiple counts related to child abuse and other serious allegations. The trial was a global spectacle. Cameras followed him to court every day. News channels dissected his appearance, his health, his gestures. Witnesses took the stand, some accusing him of unspeakable acts, others defending him as gentle and incapable of harm. Past allegations, including those from the 1993-era phone call, were brought up again and again, like ghosts that refused to stay buried. After months of testimony, the jury reached a verdict: not guilty on all counts. Legally, Michael Jackson walked out of that courtroom a free man. But morally, in the eyes of the world, the damage was harder to repair. For supporters, the acquittal was vindication proof that the earlier call and the later charges were built on lies. For skeptics, it was simply another twist in a complex story. A powerful celebrity escaping justice, or a broken system unable to reveal the full truth. What remained indisputable was this: the accusations, starting with that first call in 1993, had permanently altered the trajectory of his career. Brand deals pulled back. Radio programmers hesitated. Parents thought twice about letting their kids idolize him. Michael continued to make music, but the era when he could dominate the global charts with ease was over. His albums still sold. His tours still drew attention. But the pure, universal magic of the Thriller years never fully returned. In 2009, as he prepared for a comeback series of concerts called This Is It, Michael Jackson died suddenly at the age of 50. The reaction was immediate and enormous. Fans flooded streets around the world. Candlelight vigils, dance tributes, emotional speeches. For a moment, it felt like the old days again, when his talent overshadowed the controversies. Yet even in death, the shadow of those phone calls, those accusations, those trials did not disappear. Debate continues today. Documentaries, books, articles, and online arguments still revisit the same questions. What really happened? Was Michael Jackson a misunderstood, damaged soul whose kindness was weaponized against him? Or was he a brilliant artist who hid darker truths behind fame and philanthropy? Now it's your turn. You've heard the story of a career that seemed untouchable, shaken by a single phone call that echoed for decades. You've seen how one allegation, one report, one decision to pick up the phone and speak can change the way the world remembers a person, even someone as larger than life as Michael Jackson. So, we want to hear from you. Do you believe that phone call truly broke Michael Jackson's career? Or was it just the beginning of a much bigger story? A story about media, money, power, and the price of being a global icon. When you look back at his life, what weighs more in your mind? The music, the performances, the humanitarian work, or the accusations, the trials, and the doubts? Tell us in the comments. Share your thoughts, your memories, and your own personal verdict on Michael Jackson's legacy. Were you a fan before the scandal? Did your opinion change after? And today, with everything we know, and everything we still don't, how do you see him? If this deep dive made you think, if it helped you see the story behind the headlines, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have many more investigative documentaries coming, exploring the hidden turning points that changed the lives of the world's biggest stars. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join our community as we keep asking the hard questions behind the brightest spotlights. Your voice matters here. So comment, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going.